The date is the 12th of January, 2026. Always get the date wrong. We are on volume 3 of Kitab At Tawheed. We are, bear with me a second. Just give me 2 seconds. So Kitab At Tawheed, volume 3, page 259, which is chapter 4, which is we're getting towards the end of the book. I'll go off camera, and so you can focus on the doc. Okay, so chapter 4, page 259, the reality of the pagan Arab talbiyah. What is the reality of the pagan talbiyah? Previously, we have argued that it isn't a surprise that the Arab mushrikeen held the following wording in the talbiyah invocation. لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إلا لا لبيك لا شريك لك إلا شريكا هو لك تملكه وما ملك. At your service, you have no partner except the partner who is yours. You own him and what he owns. And ultimately, their chronic disease was that of likening divinity to that of humanity. They likened Allah to his creation, coupled with their belief in other gods, drawn from a divine element, lineage, or nature, even if they were in the position of lower or lesser gods or servants. It isn't a surprise that this was a thing among the Arabs for two reasons. Firstly, ar-rahiq al-mamluk, the owned slave. Just as the owned slave is a human and his master who owns him is also a human. Especially for those who believe that the nature of divinity exists in two types or genus. The tribe of Allah being the tribe of good, light, and the tribe of Iblis, which is that of evil and darkness. Between them rage endless wars and battles, including enslavement. Some of these legends have been mentioned elsewhere in this work. Secondly, concerns that of children, sons, and daughters. More specifically, daughters, given the custom of the mushrikeen among the Arabs, and more generally, is that the father owns the child, and by extension owns their property and wealth and property. Rights that are given to the father are far-sweeping. He has the right to sell them and even to kill them. This was a widely accepted custom in China until recently, and many primitive mushrik tribes in Africa still follow this practice. A man purchases a spouse from her father, together with several cattle. One can even find traces of this in previous divine laws. Moses' father gave him his daughter in marriage on the condition that he provide labor to him for 8 years, a significant price, perhaps equivalent to 1,000 gold dinars, comparable to the prices of the finest enslaved individuals. It wasn't a dowry per se, nor an exclusive gift for the woman, but rather a payment to her father. Traces of this exist in Judaism, customary to the Arabs before the dawn of Islam. It should therefore be self-evident and abundantly clear. It was even part of early Islamic law, which was gradually abrogated, and many instances bear witness to it. Examples abound, but notable are A, the practice of female infanticide, a practice often at times glorified. B, the vow made by Abdul Muttalib to sacrifice his 10th son if he was blessed with having 10, a well-known infamous story. Next, as expressed by the Messenger sallallahu as you and your wealth belong to your father, which is recorded in the Sunan of Ibn Majah. So this is Hisham ibn Amir narrated to us. He said, Isa ibn Yunus narrated to us. He said, Yusuf ibn Ishaq narrated to us from Muhammad ibn Munqadir, from Jabir ibn Abdullah, that a man said, O Messenger of Allah, I have wealth and a son, and my father wants to take all my wealth. He replied, you and your wealth belong to your father. It also appears in the Mujam al-Awsat by At-Tabarani, commenting after citation. He said, this hadith is not seen narrated from Yunus except by Ibn Yunus. Evidently, the isnad based upon its appearance is sahih according to the conditions set by al-Bukhari. Some have, though, leveled criticism at it due to other reports, other than via the channel of Yusuf ibn Ishaq, which report it as a mursal tradition. Yet there is corroborating evidence from other reliable sources to substantiate it. There have been there have been some who have rejected it on the basis that it was prior to a matter of nasakh, abrogation. In my view, I am inclined towards believing that it relates to a specific incident and that the father only took the wealth that was originally rightfully his for the maintenance. That much but can be gleaned from the following, an extended version with greater contextual wording, which has been recorded by At-Tabarani in two of his respected collections, Mujam al-Awsat and Mujam al-Saghir. This is reading from there. Muhammad ibn Khalid ibn Yazid al-Bardhi narrated to us in Egypt, Abu Salama, Ubaidullah ibn Khalsa, namely one time of al-Nu'man, Abdullah ibn Nafi' al-Madani, narrated to us from al-Munqadir ibn Muhammad ibn al-Munqadir from his father, Jabir ibn Abdullah. He said, a man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, O Messenger of Allah, my father has appropriated my wealth. The Prophet ﷺ said, bring your father to me. Then the angel Jibreel descended upon the Prophet ﷺ. He said to him, Allah sends you his greetings and says, when the old man comes to you, ask him about something he said to himself that his ears did not hear. When the man arrived who was old, the Prophet ﷺ asked him, what is it with regards to your son that he has complained about you? Do you intend to appropriate his wealth? In reply, he said, oh, ask him, O Messenger of Allah, did I spend the wealth on any other than his aunts or on myself? The Prophet ﷺ said, enough, tell us about something that you said to yourself, such that your ears didn't hear. In reply, he said, by Allah, O Messenger of Allah, Allah continues to increase our conviction by you. Indeed, I said as such. The Prophet ﷺ said, speak, I am listening. So he replied, I said, I fed you in childhood and took care of you when young. You lived on my earnings alone. When on some night you became sick, I spent the whole night remaining awake and restless because of your sickness, as if your sickness was my own and not yours, and because of which my eyes kept shedding tears throughout the night. My heart kept trembling lest something happens to you, though I knew that the time of death is fixed, being neither early nor late. So when you reached the age and maturity that had always been looking forward to, then you made hard-heartedness and harshness my return, as if you were the one doing me favors and giving me rewards. Alas, if it was not possible for you to fulfill my right as a father, you could have at least done what a good neighbor would have done. So you could have given me the least right of a neighbor and abstained from becoming miserly, in my case, in my own property. Then the Prophet ﷺ took hold of the son by the scruff of the neck and said, you and your wealth belong to your father. In any event, of those owned partners about whom the Arab mushrik could evidently say, you own him and what he owns, are but, according to their belief, endowed with some aspect of uluhiyah, divinity, even if it is held in a single aspect. Two additional considerations may also invariably apply. The first, either because their supposed gods, are believed to be the sons and daughters of Allah, meaning they come from the divine essence, nature, or lineage of good and light. This is one of the most significant, prominent, and indeed well-known considerations. It is likely that what is referred to in the words by the exalted and majestic in Surah Al-Zumar, he says, true devotion is to Allah alone. As for those who choose other protectors beside him, saying, we only worship them because they bring us nearer to Allah, and Allah himself will judge between them regarding their differences. Allah does not guide any ungrateful liar. Allah could have chosen any of his creation. He willed for offspring, but he is far above this. He is the one, the Almighty. And that's from Surah 39, verses 3 to 4. More will be outlined on these verses in due course. Secondly, it may relate to the notion that they, the supposed gods, are believed to be the sons and daughters of Iblis, meaning they come from the evil and dark essence or lineage. They were captured and enslaved in certain wars and confrontations between good and evil. A third possibility is that they are believed to be newly created beings, originally and inherently owned by Allah in true ownership, but they rebel against him and are capable of escaping, meaning they can escape Allah by flight, thereby defying him. Many Arabs believe this about the jinn. Those referred to in the verses from Surah Ar-Rum are likely to be of this type. So this is from Surah 30:28. He gives you this example drawn from your own lives. Do you make your slaves full partners with an equal share in what we have given you? Do you fear them as you fear each other? This is how we make our messages clear to those who use their reason. Continue with the text. To believe in the existence of these divine attributes in a specific being, according to the one who holds this belief, i.e., the belief in divinity in that particular being, is the reason for seeking help, support, and refuge from it. This also extends to asking it to bring accrued benefit, be that rain, fertility, crop yield, to ward off harm, etc. Specific rituals are therefore devoted to it, be that standing or sitting, bowing and prostrating, sacrificing offerings, lighting candles or incense, making gifts to its temples, spending on its caretakers and celebrating it, and its festivals with chants, hymns and ritualistic dancing. None of these actions in and of themselves is what makes that supposed entity a god. Rather, in the minds of its believers, it is considered a god by its own essence and qualities, even before and without such actions. All the outward and inward acts are merely the fruit of that belief and an expression of it. Hence, the issue isn't limited to that of having a share in mulk, dominion, or rububiyyah, lordship, but rather being of a divine essence, nature, or lineage. That is more fundamental and critically dangerous. For that reason, it is not correct that what Ibn Taymiyyah has set out in his seminal work, Ta'arrud al-Aql wal-Naql. So this is from the book. For this reason, the Almighty said, if there had been in the heavens or earth any gods but him, both heavens and earth would be in ruins. Just verses 21 to 22. 21:22. He did not say had there been two gods. Rather, the intended meaning is gods other than the known Allah, who is acknowledged as the true deity. No one disputes that Allah is the true ilah. The dispute is whether one can take another god as God alongside him while he is the sovereign. That is why he said, he gives you this example drawn from your own lives. Do you make your slaves full partners with an equal share in what we have given you? Do you fear them as you fear each other? This is how we make our messages clear to those who use their reason. And he, the Almighty, further said, true devotion is due to Allah alone. As for those who choose other protectors beside him, saying, we only worship them because they bring us nearer to Allah, Allah himself will judge between them regarding their differences. Allah does not guide any ungrateful liar. That's 39:3. Finally, he said, yet they take intercessors besides Allah. Say, even these have no power or understanding. Say, all intercession belongs to Allah alone. He holds control of the heavens and the earth. In the end, you will all return to him. Whenever God is mentioned on his own, the hearts of those who do not believe in the hereafter shrink with aversion, but they rejoice when gods other than him are mentioned. 39:43 to 45. The discussion was expanded about this topic regarding its relevant parts. So that's from the book. Further to this, what has been recorded in the Tafsir Ibn Kathir regarding this matter, he writes, just as he is the one in his dominion, he should be the one in his worship. Although often the Almighty affirms the station of divinity by acknowledging a rububiyyah. The mushrikeen had acknowledged this, as they would declare in their talbiyah, at your service, you have no partner except a partner who is yours. You own him and what he owns. In response, we would ask, where did Imam Ibn Kathir find in the wording of their talbiyah as mentioned, or for that matter, in any of the historical narratives, that they admitted that these partners were created by him? Particularly acute, since the text of the Quran outlines in dozens of verses that they attribute offspring to him. If such supposed offspring is part of the Father, then they are of the same nature and essence of the Father, not created by the Father. We find the same mistake made by Ibn Ashur in At-Tahrir wal-Tanwir. The meaning is, and it's from the book, is don't affirm andad equals or rivals to Allah, making them so when they are not as such. They are called andad as an allusion to their claim because the state of the Arabs in their worship of these beings was like that of someone who equates them with Allah, even though the people of Jahiliyyah would say that these gods were intercessors. They would say, we only worship them to bring us closer to Allah. They even regarded Allah as the creator of these gods, as reflected in what was expressed in the Talbiyah. At your service, you have no partner except the partner who is yours. You own him and what he owns. Compounding this error, making it even more severe, Ibn Ashur continues, but when they worship these things, and through their worship, devotion to them, vows made, and the holding of festivals around them, they forgot the worship of Allah. Their action became like those of people who believe in equality between these beings and Allah, the Exalted, because their significance lies in actions, not words. In this is a subtle allusion to their inconsistency and the contradiction between their words and actions. So this is now your commentary. Subhanallah. Where did Ibn Ashur find in their statements, let alone the historical record, that they made Allah the creator of the gods? Again, this is particularly acute since the text of the Quran outlines in dozens of verses that they attribute offspring to him. For shirk to occur and begin to take root, it starts with the belief that any aspect of divinity is placed in something other than Allah. That makes it being put on par with Allah as a rival. In essence, meaning upon the same level, even if that doesn't necessarily mean exact equality. It can be even a single particular aspect, let alone any others. No meaning is to be found in the remainder of Ibn Ashur's comments, nor does anything arise from them. Switching gears, how on earth was it fathomable for the late Professor Muhammad Ibrahim al-Fayumi to argue, therefore, when the Arabs, tribes of Kinana and the Quraysh would undertake the pilgrimage, they would say, at your service, O Allah, you have no partner except the partner who is yours. You own him and what he owns. They would declare his oneness with their talbiyah, but then include their asnam, making them partners with him, attributing ownership and possession by the statement of Allah the Almighty. Most of them will only believe in Allah while also joining others with him. And that's from Surah 12, 106. Here meaning that they don't recognize my oneness by right, except that they make partners from among my creation. This is advanced instead of the correct statement, which is that most of them do not believe in part of what is my due right, except while they take a god, rival, or a partner beside me. So this is your conclusion now. Regardless of how much one reviews the statements made upon the matter, the essential point is that this will only lead to the following. Firstly, the claim that the term tamlikuhu, you possess it, necessarily carries the meaning that you created it. Possess it completely, having total dominion over it. Indeed, this is necessarily true in the case of Allah, if he is known correctly by way of correct and true iman. However, this isn't the case as it applies to the deficient beliefs which are carried by the mushrikeen, let alone in their deeply flawed knowledge and distorted perception, as has been demonstrably shown thus far. Secondly, there is a blatant stubbornness bordering on obstinacy in seeking to maintain the falsity, indeed slander, that the Arab mushrikeen acknowledge what is termed Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, regardless of what precise definition one utilizes. That matter has been shown to be demonstrably false. Further clarifications upon that will be outlined in due course. Lastly, advocating fanciful inventions that are of no use, let alone having no real underlying connection to the subject at all, provide no enlightenment. One should pay no heed to the statement made by Ibn Ashur as set out earlier. So this is the conclusion of this chapter. Sheikh, if you have anything to elaborate, as when you mention here, for example, tamlikuhu, are you arguing that effectively people are projecting our understanding of what ilah is, our understanding of creed onto what the Arabs did, and that's where the mistake is coming from.
Yeah, they're reading it and misunderstanding because they have no real clue what the Arabs believe about ownership and fatherhood and so on, and also what they practice, and also what they call rububiyyah and mulk is wrong, is not what it means in Quran and Sunnah and reality. And thirdly, they have ignored completely the issues of divine beings being sons and daughters of Allah, or sons and daughters of the evil one, Iblis. They have ignored that completely as if it doesn't exist, because they got stuck in the bid'ah of Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Abdul Wahhab. That's what killed them. The triplet division is the beginning of the catastrophe. The moment you start that, you will never go back to any right way. You will be completely lost. You will never survive. You interpret everything in the wrong way, ignoring historic reality, or even being unaware about, or just discounted, or mentioning as a footnote, what is the fundamental one. And also, one reason for that is, for example, for the second case of Ibn Taymiyyah, is taking the ayah out of context. The ayah devotion should be only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they claim we just worship them because they bring us close to Allah. They stop there. What's about the next ayah? Is that fabricated? Which is, if Allah wanted to have children, He would do, and so. What the ones that they take for shuf'a are the divine sons and daughters, and that's it. So they take it out of consideration. They cut the Quran in pieces, which is the straightforward way for catastrophe and demise in every respect, in law and creed, understanding the reality, and studying the revelation. They cut the Quran in pieces instead of get it connected. And the challenge of the Quran is clear. If it would have been from anybody except Allah, the Quran as a total, then you will find contradiction. If you cut it in pieces, there would be contradiction right away. Because one ayah in one place completes another ayah. The same happened very prominently, not only in this. That don't happen with the ancient, because that's only a disease of Ibn Taymiyyah and onward until our time. It happened before that, long ago, in issues of law and fundamental issues of qadar and so on, which is very important. You invoke one ayah and forget another ayah. You just ignore it. Because a complex issue like qadar is much more complex. Qadar, actually, your divine knowledge is so extremely complex that you have to take many ayahs. One ayah cannot handle all aspects, interwoven aspects. That's it. So if you don't take all of them and put them together in a synchronized way, you will see immediately that it's impossible. You lead to fatalism and things like that, which is simply impossible to contradict the Quran blatantly, completely and blatantly, as we discussed so many times in Qadr. So this is the source of the disease, actually, before that, in even how to deal with Quran and Sunnah. First, taking the ayahs out of context, taking one hadith and leaving others also, yeah. But the hadith, it may be, you could say, it's easy because the possibility of fabricating the single hadith is there. So you have to take all hadith and analyze them and put them also synchronized and sort out the things. But for qadar and destiny and divine knowledge, Quran is more than sufficient, provided you read it from cover to cover. But because as I said, divine knowledge and predestination, fatalism are deep and complex issues, as known through history. Only if you read all of them together, then it will lighten your mind. Because in one place, the divine dominant force, absolute force in the universe and in the reality is stressed. In another place, the divine power and so on goes in few places, but they are still there, plenty of them, goes completely back in the background, and the human choice and will is expressed clearly and evidently. And in few other places, they are synchronized. You will not will until Allah allows you to will what you choose. And then you have also to analyze that more philosophically to have it really expressed properly. Yeah, and so on. If you all put that together, then the theory of qadar and divine pre-knowledge is absolutely clear. There's absolutely no problem. It fits with the necessity of reason if it's done properly, and fits with the text. Not so for the Old Testament and New Testament, by the way. It contradicts necessity of reason. Not only contradicts Quran. Okay, but it's another religion, so maybe both of them contradict, you know. It contradicts the necessity of reason.
Okay.
So It comes from that. That's the fundamental disease. You have to take all of it, especially in such complex issues concerning describing the realities of the Arabs and what they are believing and so on. You can glean it from various aspects of the Quran, it's historic and also the historical narrations. But you have to be comprehensive, not just that what fits your desire, like this talbiyah, the form of talbiyah, and interpreted according to desire, not according to what the people believed at that time. That will get you nowhere. You have to try to guess as much as you can. If you report a historic statement of people and things like that, what did they mean? What was this environment of their time? What's the linguistic element at that time? What's the law system? What's the moral conditions that they believed in and so on? And then you can understand it from their own point of view, which that's the way it should be, not from your own point of view. And in describing people's belief and it is the correct one, it doesn't matter what you believe or what they believe. It doesn't matter what they really believe as much as you can glean from the text and history. You have to transport yourself in history back.
You mentioned
be as neutral as possible and see what they really believe according to their time. Is it when they say, you own him, there's no partner to you except the partner you own? Look at the wedding. There's no partner to you, no sharik, except a partner. They say, except a partner. They say explicitly he is a partner, but this partner is of lower rank. You own him, but he doesn't own anything on his own right. You have given him the ownership. That doesn't mean necessarily it's a created being. It could be a divine son and daughter. It could be a created being who is rebelled. So you are not owning him completely. You own him in most things, but not in everything. And this is all applied to the mushrikeen. No, they say, no, it's completely owned. That's what Ibn Taymiyyah thinks. It's completely owned, it's completely slave, has nothing to, cannot do anything, absolutely nothing. It is only, they believe it's only partner because they can touch him, kiss it, and make sujood to it. That's what makes him divine. No, that's not. It's divine by certain aspects of belief, even if you don't like it. But you did not report what the people historically believed. And we will find similar errors down the road, the same thing.
So you mentioned this, taking a snapshot of history. Is that we can be assured that history has been completely reported? Because obviously we have Isnad science for hadith, etc.
Oh yeah, we have when we at the beginning of the chapter or at the end, the chapter of the reality of the paganism of the Arab, which you just
finished that. We finished the Tawheed as it relates to Greek.
Go back and see how many narrations, the Quran, Sunnah, and the historic narration and so on, which gives you a general picture in almost in a convincing, or not almost, definitely in a certain convincing way. The fine details are not very relevant, but give you the general picture in a very absolutely clear way. That's the point. It was not done by Ibn Taymiyyah. He bragged that you should go to the book of Azraqi to know what the Arabs have been. Yeah, Azraqi contains plenty of that, but not all of it. We have other books about the history of Makkah, but we have also other things scattered in Syria, Sirah, scattered in history books and on genealogies, all of these things. You have to do the job. If you want to say what they really believed, you have to do the job. You cannot say what you guess they believed or what your understanding of the Quran reporting their belief or reporting their action.
Ultimately, the raw material is.
You have to do better than that. I mean, you have to do better. But the fundamental problem is that you already set the problem of Rububiyyah and Uluhiyyah, and then everything is seen from this grass. Already made the wrong definition, and he is stuck to that. He's not willing to get out of it. But he is stuck to it. You remember we discussed the evidence of mutual prevention, the tamana, that if two deities will never cooperate or they have to fight and separate themselves. The evidence that he developed is almost perfect in its logical structure. But everywhere, he doesn't use the word ilah that was used by, I say Rabb. Why using Rabb and I use ilah? He will argue in this context it's the same. But, okay, why didn't you use the word which is within in the eye still? Because you claim they are different in certain contexts and the same in the same context. So you have to in that case. And when I quoted him, I essentially took his own words, organized the evidence much clean, a little bit cleaner, because he sometimes extend to the side issues and go back and so on. Because he's having a very, very wide knowledge and deep knowledge in certain areas. That's no doubt. He's a very intelligent man, extremely intelligent. but not philosophically sophisticated in that sense, and tend to play sophistry and play games with the word. But independent of that, his evidence is excellent. So I adopted it, almost his own wording with a little bit of editing. But I made a note that everywhere we have ilah, ilah, ilah. We're using the same word in the ayah. Because the Quran, if we assume it is from divine origin, if it's not from divine origin, then we have to close that everything and start something else. Go read the Capital, for example, of Karl Marx. But if we believe in divine origin, and we think we believe, and based on irrefutable evidences, but if we start from this point, assume yourself as divine, then you must assume the using of the word ilah in this ayah is significant rather than Rabb in another ayah. Has to be. Otherwise, we are playing game. Contradict our fundamental. So, if you develop such an excellent proof of mutual conclusion, mutual representation, as an evidence against multiple deities, is excellent, use the word of the ayah, ilah. It is used there for a reason. You cannot dictate that God means the same like Rabb. No, even if he means the same. And that he used ilah. Use the word ilah. And if you need to clarify that for any reason, clarify it. So, for example, just it's stuck. It's stuck. He has put colored glasses and see the whole, let's say, green glasses, dark green glasses, and see the whole world is green. Nothing can be done about that. All what you tell, please take your glasses off and look at the world as it is, was as seen by all other humans, joined with humans, because only Allah knows what is it exactly, because our range of spectrum is limited. Someone who can see infrared by nature, not by infrared devices. Our infrared devices, they translate things of infrared in a suitable color. It's a synthetic color. It's not that what that's not what's seen in the natural situation. So that we can see something. In case of infrared, for example, military glasses and so on, they show people like more lightened, more yellowish if they are hot, and more reddish if they're cold. But if you take the glass off, it is dark. Everything is dark. You don't see anything. But you have to make some representation because the glass is made for a human. I don't want to go into the relatively deeper philosophical issue, but it's very clear what I mean. He's looking with his own glasses, not except instead of looking with the natural eyes Allah gave to him. Or admit I am blind, don't ask me to comment on things. That's it. So that's the problem. Again, we go back to it, the same problem. They also compounded with the problem is that making the Quran Arabic, cutting the Quran in pieces and parts. Yes, you need to analyze, obviously, a certain issue, one ayah or a few ayahs, but even one ayah should not be taken out of the context. Context by context. You can't do one ayah ignoring the one before and after. Unless it jumps from one code. That's one nature of the Quran. One of its stylistic significance is that in the same surah, except the very, very small ones, it goes from context to another context. One context is rarely one ayah only, but sometimes it is. But it's a group of ayahs. Then it goes to another context, which is evidently completely independent. Like Surah Al-Baqarah. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب إلى آخره. It's about muttaqin. And there's certain issues there. And then it addresses these who disbelieve, meaning the one, especially the one in Quraysh and so on, because they, whatever you do, they will never embrace faith. It means certain people in Quraysh, not all of them. In Adina Kafaru, the staunch leader of Kufr in Quraysh, they are condemned. They will never come back. Which gives us a hint, be careful. Those who converted after the conquest are most likely hypocrites, with a question mark on them. You don't find classical scholars saying that because they're combining that with other things related, latecomer regarded nifaq and so on. But that's an extra point behind the direct text. Then he speaks about munafiqeen, takes several ayahs describing their state. And then it jumps about issues about Musa and creation of Adam. So it's another context. So already a few first ayahs are three contexts, but interconnected, classifying the whole world between believer, and their main characteristic, the disbeliever, especially the disbeliever of Mecca, which whatever you want will never accept, the staunchly, repeatedly enforced disbeliever, the addictor, and the munafiqeen, who are wavering. Two types of munafiqeen there. The one who's completely deep in nifaq, and they will go in complete darkness, and the other who are wavering. They sometimes see, and then they go back. They are in a state of wavering. And you can give an example for this in history. The one deep in nifaq will never recover is like Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. The one is wavering is like Marwan ibn al-Hakam, for example, who sometimes acts as a believer, memorize the Quran, sometimes not, back and forth. So, from history, you can give example. Obviously, that does not mention examples. Then he goes to another issues. So that's the way to. But still, even these that cannot be divorced from the whole Quran and other clarification points here and there, which gives you space. And that is usually in another layer of meaning. That's the reason it have a first simple, straightforward meaning, and a deeper one, a deeper one, a deeper one, a deeper one. Okay?
Okay.
That's all has been neglected by the classics. Completely. Almost completely. Barely anyone is the one who is and it's worse in the case of Jews and Christians. Extremely worse. Like, for example, when attributed to Isa, assuming the attribution is correct. Myself and the Father are one. You say, see? He says he and the Father one of their own substance. But if you check the same gospel and other gospels, he addresses his follower, the Hawariyin. If you do this and this, then you will be with the Father as one. You will be in the camp of the Father. You will have the same will, the same direction. That's the meaning of it, not the same essence. Taking out of context, and even John itself. If you read this and follow before and after, it will make you clear. I have the same. If I give you a command, it's the command of the Father. It's not mine. I'm not doing it for my own. I cannot do anything with my Father's permission. So if you take all of that, it's very clear what the meaning is. Me and the Father is one. Or say, I am the way and the truth and the life. What does this mean? So, look, he is divine. No. Only through me you will reach the Father. Yes, because if you don't follow him, you will not reach the Father ever. You will not reach ever. You are disbelieving in the Father if you disbelieve in his messenger, whoever the messenger. And so, but that rampant in Christianity. And also in Muslims, you have to admit. But in Christianity is more. And Judaism is more. Even one word, they get stuck with one word. In addition, this is full of fabrication and omission and so on. This is making the catastrophe even going into an orbit. But even these things, the context does not help them. And the current scripture, despite all embellishments and so on, do not help them. And they still go there. Because they've decided to see the divine Son from the same essence. And everything has to be twisted to serve this fiction. Same here with Ibn Taymiyyah. Same disease. Same disease. You get a certain fiction idea, whatever, how you got there. Is it because of being abused in childhood, like many atheists, for example? Or you feel that you are forsaken by Allah, He did not help you in a certain situation? You screamed asking for help, did not come, say, oh, He doesn't exist, and so on. And things like that, psychological issues. And then you try to do everything, twist every rationality, every text, everything to help you in this direction. See this one, see this one. I mentioned that, I think, yesterday also, answering one atheist and so on. I think when I mentioned about Ehrman, a great, so he's still alive, he's a good man, excellent man. And then he criticized the Bible and so on. He's very critical and things like that, but in a very historical, respectable way. But the one asking him, a woman in his program, his videos coming continuous, almost continuously. So is that the reason I became an atheist? The first time I knew that he's an atheist. But say, no, because we probably were suffering. So he obviously stuck that a divine being, the only possible definition that is extremely good, that he is willing to die on the cross. Although this historical facts is not. But that definition is still stuck in his bones and skin. So saying, maybe my definition of the divinity is wrong. But khalas, this become like a love story since childhood, not because of rationalism. And then he cannot get out of that. It's true. Such an entity cannot exist with this universe. Shows it's not true. His love is not unlimited, and otherwise there will be the testing universe, which is impossible. Unlimited the way Christians believe, not the way it is in itself really, as the complete reading of scripture after proving the fundamental aspects by necessity of reason and ontological and other proofs. Then we could derive, then it is there, it is Rahmah, is encompassing. But capable of encompassing. He can write it, he can restrict it, he can expand it, he can negate it for certain people, he can expand it for certain people, and so on. That's the Quran shows. If you call this rahmah, is that they call love, because the love there is a translation of a Greek word, which is not really love like the love you love to have the same way like you have to your father and your wife. It's something like being charitable and kind, essentially like rahmah. It's called agape or something like that. For example, so he stuck that poor guy there because this is the only way he could conceive divinity. He never heard about any definition. So it can't, something like that can't handicap, because you never went critically that. He's critical to the text and so on, and came to the good conclusion that there's embellishment, that they are putting words in Jesus' mouth, that there's fabrication, there's forgery and so on, which is evident. Nobody can, any mind can. But he started the fundamentalist Christian believing in all of these things and then shed them one by one. And then when obviously the scripture foundation went, but still the definition which grew up from childhood, that God came down and became flesh and so on and died on a cross for you. Obviously, he doesn't believe in that. But that God is having these attributes, goodness or whatever they call love, comprehensive love, he fails. He cannot get it. It doesn't synchronize this universe with the definition of love and this they believe they grow up with it. And he never confronted any other scripture or any other beliefs or worked with philosophical definition. He never went into ontology. He was just scripture man. So this needs a lot of struggle here to overcome these biases you have from childhood. And Allah knows all of that. I'm not saying that Erman is condemned in Akhirah. Maybe in Akhirah he will be saved. Allah will recognize that he could not overcome that. He is excused. We leave that to Allah. We're not condemning anyone to hell or no, that's not our business. We should not do that. That's what Wahhabi do and these idiots. No, we don't do that. But they say that's a handicap. And this almost, for some people, it may be impossible to overcome. And Allah knows very well. فإذا جاء أجلهم فإن الله كان بعباده بصيرا. He knows. He has deep sight in all their affairs. But don't dictate to Allah who will he be sent to hellfire and so on. You put general principles. Anyone receiving the message, all evidences are clear to him and so on. And he internally convinced that they are true and so on and reject. If that's fulfilled, but is it fulfilled for whom and what? Only by divine testimony, which we don't have for the majority of human beings, even the most staunch kafir, except some Qurayshi, the Quran condemned, like Abu Lahab, except for Fir'aun, etc. And few things, the house of Fir'aun. So that's the way to look at the matter. Many of these things are because of, but we cannot. Now, if someone writes something wrong, we cannot say, okay, we excuse him and go into excuse. That's not our job. I'll just say that statement is wrong because of this and this and this, and bring a proof based on the necessity of perception and reason, or a proof at mathematical level and so on, or a proof based on history and tawatur. And then we say that proves that this point of view is wrong. That's it. The one who advocated it may be guilty, may not guilty. Sometimes you need, in some situation, try to find a little bit of justification or take someone who knows better. So, for example, when I talk about rogue, khariji, bloodshed, all of that, I never say that he's a kafir. The man was blinded by mistakes made in Taymiyyah and he sharpened it. Is that did he knew that is false and he insisted it? That to make him clear kafir? We don't know. All indication, not. He was so obsessed, willing to die for his cause, which indicates that he's convinced. But he's the rogue? Yes, he's the rogue. He established the first Daesh. The first Saudi state is definitely a Daesh. Even worse than the current Daesh, yes, he is. But does not mean he's a kafir. But we can declare him a kafir in the technical sense. That does not apply to Muawiyah. It's definitely a munafiq kafir. Because a treaty with the Romans, with Amr ibn As, take them out of the fold of Islam directly. And they have been seen, and they know the ayats, and they know the Arabic. There's no doubt about that. That's clearly the case. So we say there, so Muawiyah, munafiq kafir, because he's publicly Muslim, but in reality he's a kafir internally. And there's much more other evidence there, which make it sealed. So make a distinction between the two. So we are not another excuse unless we have to condemn for certain reason. Muawiyah, not because we're interested in his character. To the hell with his character. We don't care about him. But he did something in Islamic history and Islamic scholarship and fiqh infected such a disease that you have to expose him. We are not in the business digging the graves unless we are forced. That's the reason earlier when I was in prison, when the intelligence service brought a question from the interrogator there, the donkeys. So they brought a question from some madkhali, most likely in the Ministry of Interior. Say, you speak negative about Muawiyah. What's your evidence for that? I thought the Shibrin. This is not from you. You don't know what's Muawiyah. I think you are just, I didn't say donkey, but you're out of this. This is from someone in Ministry of Interior. Tell the guy, must I tell you, leave Muawiyah in his grave. I tell him the word again. Leave him in his grave. If we dig out, we will get snakes, scorpions, and worms and stench out. Keep it there. After that, no question of Muawiyah ever came until I was released from prison. But we were forced after that to dig because he's invoked now. So here, Muhammad Khali, when a guy like a Tawil comes and says, they attack Muawiyah because Muawiyah is the first one. He said, the Madkhali, the one who established inheriting the power. Tawrith al-Arsh, inheriting the throne. He says, clearly establishing. That's the reason they're attacking Muawiyah. It's known. So we have to put the clear on the table. It cannot be hereditary in Islam. By no way, it's impossible. It contradicts all Islamic principles. The one who introduced that in Islam is Muawiyah. Nobody can escape from that. This is well-established historical fact beyond dispute, despite all what they cover up and play games out of it. So we are forced, because this is to show that this man is not governing according to Islamic governance. He's claiming to be Islamic governor, but in reality, under his bosom, he's a munafiq kafir. That's what forced us, not because we love to call someone munafiq kafir and dig graves, no. But sometimes you have to dig graves. That's the reason I'm warning recently in Arabic. I'm not doing it in English very much. People coming with Ahmed ibn Hanbal and the creed, and he protected Islam in the fitna, etc. Say, don't open your mouth anymore in this area. We know what your man is. Leave him in his grave, please. Don't dig out. Bas. And they're telling everyone present that, don't come with that. Because if we dig it out, it will be catastrophe for him. We don't want to go into that. Because it doesn't have any purpose. Unless they insist for us to dig it out. Okay?
Okay. Continue. So we're now on chapter 5, Tawheed as it relates to creation, page 268. Tawheed al-Khaliqiyah. Tawheed as it pertains to the matter of creation is the decisive conviction that Allah alone is capable of creation, formation, bringing about a state of existence from non-existence in the truest sense of the word. There is no being or entity other than Allah which has this ability through their own inherent power. Allah retains this independently. If such an ability or capacity exists, it is only in a very limited sense, being derived from a power that Allah has bestowed upon the creation.
And this is in linguistically khalaqa, meaning fashion. That's clearly in the ayah about Isa ibn Maryam. When he tells Bani Israel, I'm sending to all of you, I fashion from the bed, أخلق لكم من الطين كهيئة الطير. I fashion or I create from the mud like the shape of a bird. So making the shape, that's what he called أخلق لكم. So خلق is shaping. It's not initiation, not fitra after. He didn't say after. أخلق لكم. So the only Allah is capable of out of nothing making the shape, making the substance, everything. Either directly or through stages of evolution. That's not relevant, but the initiation is really fundamental like that. This excessive only to, it's impossible even to put that to someone else. It's not possible even. Divine power doesn't extend to the impossible. What is possible is that someone is empowered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shape like that. So that it appears as if he's creating the bed. It appears only. In reality, he's just giving the power to shape it and bloat it and it flies away. ثم أنفخ عليه ثم أنفخ فيه فيكون طيرا بإذن الله. That's his way. So that's the meaning of shape. That's why we use خالقية, not initiation or ibda or something like that, because this may contain things which are exclusively for the divine being are not given to anybody else. But khalq, yeah, he can authorize and give people the ability to make shapes and so on from existing material. But they just arbitrarily out of their desire can shape from nothingness. It's impossible. It's not accessible to any finite power. But Allah's power can at that time act, and it appears as if he's the actor. The same with reviving the dead. In the reviving story, I think it's in John, he supplicates clearly, revive that for me so that people know that I'm your messenger. You just read it there. You can't believe that for the people, how the people got themselves stuck in this divinity of Christ and the later in Trinity with this clearly like as big as we say in Najd as a donkey. So big in front of you, you cannot miss it, but it's still missed. Because people are just blinded in by certain going into extremes of belief, and they are willing to twist everything upside down. Okay, carry on. So this is the Khaliqiyah. Carry on.
Thereby, so what is creation? What word does Allah use for creation ex nihilo then?
Be. Just
Be. Kun itself is from zero, yeah? From
yeah. Kun. It's just the will is directed. خلاص, it happens. إنما قوله إذا, this is even a metaphoric. إنما قوله إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. Okay. Because we, as a limited being, we have to present the will in a certain way which can comprehend. If you want to go to the market, you talk to yourself, now I'm going to the market. If you watch yourself how you make a decision, you actually talking to yourself internally, I'm going now to the market. So that's the way human can comprehend how will works. So it's a metaphor in a قوله لشيء أن يقول له كن فيكون. The shay is not there, so you're not addressing nothingness. It is my will, that thing come out of it, and you have to express it as a human in words. How the divine does it, we just say he says like that. Because the only way we can speak about him using our human language and limitation, knowing their limitation. That's it. No more than that. Don't go deeper than that, because there's no way to go deeper unless you are yourself divine, which is impossible. And even in Akhirah, it will not be possible for you to comprehend that. You may understand more and more and more, but never get to comprehend it completely, because it needs infinite comprehension. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay. Thereby it operates only with his permission, decree, and empowerment to do so. Such masters necessarily are established through the dictates and necessity of reason. Revelation has come to provide a further concrete proof upon this, with elaboration of the specific meanings. This matter is outlined in many texts, among them being, praise belongs to Allah, who created the heavens and the earth and made darkness and light, yet the disbelievers set up equals to their Lord. And that's Surah 6:1. The creator of the heavens and the earth, how could he have children when he has no spouse, when he created all things and has full knowledge of all things? That's Surah 6:101. Allah has never had a child, nor is there any God beside him. If there were, each God would have taken his creation and aside and tried to overcome the others.
That's the tamana, yeah. Yeah.
May Allah be exalted above what they describe, and that's 2391. Allah may his names be sanctified, has explained that none other than him has created anything. Therefore, there is no partner with him in that respect.
In the Muslim, Allah خالق كل شيء وهو على كل شيء وكيل. He's the creator of everything, which can be imagined and perceived as being created, meaning everything except that the divine himself, he is not created. He's not a self-creator, does not make any sense. There's a contradiction, but everything else is his creation. Everything else, which can say it is an entity beside Allah, not Allah, another entity. Every other entity, which we can point as an entity, it's his creation, his making. Yeah.
Have their partners they assigned to Allah created anything like his creation, so that their creation is indistinguishable from his? Say, Allah is the creator of all things. He is the one, the all-compelling. And that's from Surah 13:16. For the Muslims, the custom has curtailed the use of the word creation together with derivatives, except in reference to the right of Allah, the Almighty and Exalted. There is quite a strong aversion to utilizing the term in common parlance for anyone other than Allah. a notable example being the descriptive phase of a creative mind, and instead using an inventive mind. Broadly, this is good mannerism, worthy of observance and maintenance. Although it is not
okay, it's an obsession, but it's not bad. It's not a bad one. It's not that you should condemn it and so on. But the Quran itself uses خلق كويسة أخذ خلق من الطين كهيئة الطير. It's not a problem. But
does this
we
also
have
tie back to, for example, when you mentioned that the obsession with Khalq al-Quran, and you said that's the same as Fa'ala.
Yeah.
So is this because linguistically they weren't able to differentiate the two from Khalq and Fa'ala? Or
no. It's just that because Allah said in the Quran, خالق كل شيء, the creator of everything. So they don't like to say, I created something in that word creation. The word خلق specifically. They don't like it. And it became a custom. It's not a bad custom. We should stick to it. But we should not go to extreme that if someone says he has a creative mind, عقلية خلاقة, no, don't say خلاقة, say something is مبدعة and things like that. This is becoming a little bit obsessive. That's what I mean. That's just a casual remark. It's a good custom. It's a good custom too. It's not like other custom, for example, that you don't make joke about Allah Himself. That's definitely a big no, big red line. Why in the West and so on, people make jokes. They don't feel there's any problem. And the reason is that Jesus became human and got crucified. So you can make a bit of jokes and stories and so on. Things like that. It's not as severe for them. Although they avoid, definitely they are not making it, but you can have a program of comic program and so on, in which some jokes about God and the angels and so on are mentioned. They don't feel a hesitation. Yeah, you see what I mean? There, the obsession is good, because this is a very big no. Anything which touches the respect, undermines the divine's respect, should be avoided. There are many topics you can make joke about. Why? You can make joke about yourself. You make jokes about your parents, which is bad, but still, okay, you may. But not about God. But they make in the West. Yeah?
Probably
that's sort of language, not an issue, but I'm talking about genuine creation is only accessible to the one with infinite power. That's a divine being. So Allah Khaliq, He's the creator of everything except Himself. So Khaliq kulli shay is not as general as that, because this shay is a shay which can be created, which for Him conceivable to be created. So excluding His divine self. That's eternal, that's not created. Okay. Carry on.
Broadly, this is good mannerism, worthy of observance and maintenance, although it is not prohibitive per se. An example of this can be seen from the express wording as set out in the following verse, where Allah the Almighty said about Isa alayhi salam and his mother, "By my leave, you created the shape of a bird out of clay, breathed into it, and it became by my leave a bird." That's Surah 510. Allah does not use
even Isa that He said, "Bi'idhnillah." I will blown it, and bi'idhnillah. He says that clearly. Even if their narration, they have it in narration, not in the gospel, the so-called infancy gospel. They present it as it is, put it in His young years, as if it's playing games like that. Is that intentionally, or the people did not understand how it happens? Anyway, that He made birds, and then He clapped, and the birds flew away. And then the people complained about that, but only about that He did that on the Sabbath. Complained to His father, or adoptive father, Yusuf the carpenter. So the story has been mutilated there, and not even in the main Gospels. Okay, carry on.
Allah does not use false expressions. It is evidently known that the example of hair of creation by the hand of Isa alayhi salam is not the same as the creation of life by the permission of Allah. While both falling under the wording of creation, the two are not of the same type, with a vast difference between them. By His very essence, Allah being the creator is part of the meaning relating to Him being Ilah. There is no direct conceptual relation to Him being Rabb, Lord. Yeah. This invalidates the attempted definition which was given by
direct conception, but logic and city dictate this and base that on this, base that, but linguistically, conceptually, they're completely different concepts from, and they give the example that the creator is not necessarily the Lord or owner. For Allah, it all coincide by necessity. But for other creation, we'll give the example of the Japanese car maker. He's the creator of the car, but the car is sold and then someone else owns the car. I think the example will come. Just to clarify this point also. That's a mistake to call Khaliqiyya, add Khaliqiyya and the Rububiyyah, which is the fundamental blunder of Ibn Taymiyyah, which broke his back. That's it. So carry on. It will be expanded upon. But it's very obvious that making your mind, identifying it that it is necessitated somehow linguistically, no, it's not. It's not. It's by necessity of reason, building step by step by step. Carry on.
There is no direct conceptual relation to him being Rabb, Lord. This invalidates the attempted definition which was given by the Imam Shaykh ibn Taymiyyah for what he dubbed as Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, for which he put the creator at the top of that list for the definition. As we have previously elucidated, regarding the definition of the word Rabb, this is incorrect. Placing the concept of creation neatly within the concept of Rububiyyah is not one that naturally fits, despite the acrobatics. Ibn Taymiyyah's tripartite definition of Tawheed becomes flawed, indeed invalid from this perspective, and there is no might nor power except by Allah. Yet the correct understanding is that Allah the Exalted created all creation from nothingness, from non-existence, to know, thank, and worship Him. He, the Almighty, has created for His own sake, by His will, since there is no other God, deity, there is no other necessary being or entity besides Him that deserves to be created for, or for that matter, to whom His worship, in other words, His absolute ownership and sovereignty can be transferred to. There is no other.
That's a result of being a creator. He became then the Rabb, the owner, and the right of command, and so on. This result from that by necessity, not that the concept of creation is any related to the concept of Rabb. No, it's different. That's different. And they give the example of the car maker and so on. Carry on.
His absolute ownership and sovereignty can be transferred to. There too. I think that's a double O as well. Okay. There is no other necessarily existent being besides Him, to which all creation belongs. Only He possesses all an independent dominion. From this, it necessarily follows that all creation is deemed His property and in servitude to Him. He, without question, is their Lord. He is the Lord of all worlds and all creation because He created them. His lordship is a branch and a necessary result of His ownership of creation and vice versa. Not vice versa.
Not vice versa,
Opposing types of polytheism. There are various subdivisions of shirk held at a doctrinal level which are opposed to this aspect of Tawheed. Varied, but among them are the following. A. The notion that evil is created by a deity of evil by way of its inherent independent power, which is perceived to be either in opposition to or at least against the will of Allah, contrary to His will and purpose. In general, this is the view held by the Zoroastrians, who are dualists. Some of them argue that the God, deity, entity of evil is ancient and eternal, which is a combination of shirk adat, polytheism relating to the divine essence, as explained previously, with shirk al-khalq wal-taqweem. Moreover,
التقدير ولا
taqween.
That's a misprint maybe. Anyway, carry on. نشوف we'll see. Maybe this has some meaning which I missed.
Others from among them have made the claim that the God of evil is a created being, thereby not ancient or eternal, hence making the point of shirk remote solely to the latter. B. The belief that there are multiple gods, deities, who each have a share in the creation of different parts of the world, each god, deity being independent and self-sufficient, not reliant upon any of the others. Many primitive mushrikeen held this view, notably among the ancient Greeks, who designated gods to various aspects of the world, god of the sea, god of the underworld, etc. C. Attribution of creation to nature. This rests upon the idea or belief that nature brought existence into being by way of its inherent properties, which by necessity can't be violated or overturned. Some philosophers and naturalists cling to this viewpoint. As a result of this belief, its adherents outright deny outright the miracles of the prophets. Most are atheists who deny the existence of Allah. D, lastly, is a belief which ascribes to the view that creation and created beings came into existence without the permission of Allah or even against His will. An example of this is the supposed God of evil that the Zoroastrians believe in, as mentioned earlier. They argue when God finished creation, He looked at it and was pleased, and He thought, if there are anyone who could challenge His sovereignty and ruin this perfectly ordered universe, the malicious thought manifested into a defiant devil, which was absolute pure evil, whose sole purpose is to ruin God's work and challenge His sovereignty. An utter absurdity, but this does suggest the notion of a creation against the will of Allah and without a creation.
Mhm.
One could argue that it is construed as being an emanation or birth from a thought, which would also seemingly make it shirk al-dhat. In any event, such an example shows the combination of multiple impossibilities, contradictions, and absurdities into a single shirk concept.
Mhm.
Notwithstanding the above, it must be known with absolute certitude beyond doubt that its main significance resides in the true essence and central core contents of the belief, regardless of which names or labels may be attributed to it.
Yeah.
Whomsoever attributes to anyone or anything other than Allah the ability to create and marshal into existence from nothing or non-existence independently, as the dualistic Zoroastrians did, has ascribed to that supposed God, deity, entity the attributes of divinity. It is effectively to make another God beside Allah. It is
Even
not
if they call it shaitan, even if they call it evil, it doesn't matter. It is the attribution of the belief that some other entity can create independently, even if that entity is created or good or bad, that's all irrelevant. That's created independently. That's the problem. Or undermines Allah's creation. That's it. Create opposite to Allah wills. That's khalas. That's finished. Anyway, that's a shirk in khaliqiyya and definitely shirk. It doesn't matter if they call it God, they call it demiurge, they call it whatever name. This is not relevant. This is all playing the words. The essential point is that this essential reality. Then it is a God beside Allah, automatically, disregarding whatever they name it and so on. Okay?
Okay. This is a final chapter from section from this. It is not massively relevant what name those who do this give to that supposed God or deity entity, whether they even call it a god or devil, a spirit, Mother Nature, or anything else. It is not entirely relevant what specific actions adherents of that doctrine undertake, be that veneration, obedience, or the like. The
Yeah.
essential point here is the content and nature of that belief, not the attributed names or even the acts upon which its devotees undertake. The latter has a different consideration, and it is to be analyzed in its appropriate context.
Mhm.
Okay, so that ends this section. Page 272 is the end of this section. The next chapter is called... So this next chapter, I think we can probably finish the next chapter, and then because the one after that is Tawheed Hakimiyya, and I think that deserves its own
Okay. Mhm.
section. So chapter 6, Tawheed of dominion, administration, and creative disposition. Page 273. Tawheed in relation to sovereignty, management, and central authority refers to the definitive belief that Allah alone governs the cosmos and exercises absolute authority over it, independently and autonomously. It encompasses the understanding that Allah determines all measures and decrees, such that nothing occurs within creation except through His knowledge, decree, and permission. No
Mhm.
agent acts within creation except with Allah's leave by virtue of the capacity bestowed upon them by Allah, the
Mhm.
innate properties instilled within them, and the natural dispositions granted to them, all of which operate in subordination to Allah's prior determination, decree, and knowledge, rather than by any intrinsic autonomy or independent will.
Mhm.
The dimension of Tawheed referred to as Tawheed al-Mulk والتدبير والتصرف
مختصر.
التطويلي
Mhm.
Tawheed pertaining to sovereignty, management, and creational authority is in essence synonymous with Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, or more
Yeah.
precisely, creational Tawheed al-Rububiyyah.
Yeah, because Rububiyyah has two branches, creational and normative. Creative and normative. Normative is Hakimiyya. So because this is important by itself, is having a chapter by itself. But we are now only in the creative part. Yeah.
Historically, much of the shirk prevalent among the Arabs and other simpler communities of mushrikeen stemmed from a deficiency in this aspect of belief. Thus, the Quran and the prophetic Sunnah are replete with countless texts emphasizing this reality. Furthermore, the Prophet ﷺ specifically distinguished belief in Al-Qadr, its good, bad, and all of it stemming from Allah, the Almighty, as a standalone pillar of Al-Iman, given its intrinsic connection to this topic. He, the Almighty and Exalted, says,
Then, who creates evil. That's the Qadr is addressing. Yeah.
Then establish himself on the throne, governing everything. There is no one that can intercede with him unless he has first given permission. This is Allah, your Lord, so worship him. How can you not take heed? And that's Surah 10, verse 3. Next verse, which is 10:31. Say, Prophet, in brackets, who provides for you from the sky and the earth? Who controls hearing and sight? Who brings forth the living from the dead and the dead from the living? And who governs everything? They are sure to say Allah. Then say, why do you not take heed of him? It is evident through the necessities of sensory perception and reason, as well as definitively affirmed by the texts of Revelation, that the universe operates through consistent laws, whereby causes and effects follow one another in a customary and perpetual manner. Fire, for instance, consistently burns dry wood, and the pure water of rainfall causes vegetation to grow. Similarly, the universe is filled with entities possessing will and choice, which act, move, come and go. All of these are contingencies that are dependent on one another. It is logically inconceivable for these phenomena to be necessitated by their intrinsic essence, as they are by their very nature created, contingent, and possible, not necessary, eternal, or self-sufficient. How then could their attributes, actions, and states, which are secondary to their essence, be deemed necessary or obligatory? Thus, it is inevitable that all of this occurs by the decree of Allah, the ever-living, the self-subsisting, who alone is necessary in his existence, pre-eternal, without beginning, and everlasting, without end. Therefore, all occurrences in the universe are not due to intrinsic necessity or interdependence, but by the will of Allah, through his knowledge, will, creation, management, and cosmic permission. There is no God or deity except him, nor any Lord besides him. Upon him we rely, and through him we seek strength. This is precisely the meaning of the phrase Al-Qadr. Its good and its evil are from Allah the Exalted, without excess or deficiency. While many people have included many other concepts under the title of Al-Qadr, Al-Qada wal-Qadr, much of it is imagined and false. These topics have caused confusion among readers, but addressing such matters requires a separate treatise, which is still under preparation. Intrinsic necessity or independence in action can only belong to a god or deity. Believing in the realization of such characteristics in anything other than Allah constitutes shirk, which stands in total contradiction to Islam and expels its adherents from the faith, assuming they had previously entered to it with a sound covenant. The dimension of Tawheed is contradicted by several forms of doctrinal shirk. Among them, as examples, rather than an exhaustive list are the following. The belief held by some of the Saba'iyya, star worshippers, and the worshippers of celestial bodies, asserting that stars, or the intellect, souls, and angelic spirits residing within them, possess knowledge of the lower world and act upon it independently. Secondly, is the claim of many mushrikeen, including the mushrikeen among the Arabs, that the minor deities, by virtue of their divine essence and familial or relational ties to the greater deities, independently manage certain intercession without prior permission, as a mediation that is always accepted and never rejected by the greater deities.
Mhm.
Thirdly is the assertion of some naturalist philosophers that the arrangement of causes and effects occurs by necessity, an unbreakable order, such that one cannot be separated from the other under any circumstance. This belief is likewise a form of doctrinal shirk,
Mhm.
wholly contradictory to Islam and expelling its adherents from the faith,
Yeah,
assuming they had previously entered into it.
that natural cause and effect in nature, physics, chemistry, and so on, is absolutely necessary, and Allah cannot break it. That's it. That's if you believe, then you made this then intrinsically uh, uh, doing tasarruf by itself, even if you call it just connection between causes. The names are irrelevant. Relevant is the content of the belief. That in the reality, the connection is established by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He defined the laws and the initial value and everything so that these connections are valid, but at any moment he can waive them in a specific situation or waive in the whole universe, etc. Mm-hmm.
This view also contradicts the truth established by definitive rational and scriptural evidence, which demonstrates that the connection between cause and effects is not necessary, but rather customary, assigned, or decreed. This means that Allah has assigned these connections by His will and permission, maintaining them in accordance with a customary pattern, not by absolute rational or conceptual necessity that precludes alteration. So basically, the whole idea of blind, deaf, dumb nature.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fourth comes the attribution to some extent proponents of the Qadariyya sect that the voluntary acts of human beings occur without Allah's permission or decree. These individuals, when challenged in debate, may adhere to the position that such acts occur despite Allah's will, or that Allah was incapable of preventing them. Statements that are entirely removed from the majesty and perfection of Allah. It is important to hasten to clarify that the intent of most of those described as extreme Qadiriyya is not explicitly apparent, and we do not know of any adherents of Islam from among the Qadiriyya who had made or upheld such claim. However, these views are consequences implied by the statements of some of their extremists. This may explain why certain eminent scholars of Hadith referred to them as the Magians of this Ummah, a term often used, particularly in the heat of polemics when tempers flare, verbal exchanges intensify, and reason
Most likely
gives way to emotion.
this is just insult and so on. Doesn't reflect any reality. Does not reflect any reality. It's the reality is that free agent make their decision and they are responsible for their action. But this is by their own nature created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and by Allah allowing them to choose whatever they choose. That's the correct phrase. By this, it could not have been happened without Allah permitting them to choose what they choose. But the choice itself is there within the divine permission. That's solve the problem completely and make sense and does not make them divine in any sense. Yeah, or controlling the universe in any sense, giving them control of their action. That Allah withdraw his capability of enforcing something in one direction. Allah He granted them to choose whatever they choose. And the evidence we mentioned the issue of Pharaoh, the issue the forgiveness of these people who were back. All of these we mentioned in other situations. We don't need to go there. The evidence for that. And that's what they meant, really. But the other side, which is more like really fatalists, with a thin cover up, with blah, 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 really, but they're really fatalists, Jabri. They just accuse these people for something like Allah does not know what happened, but He's surprised, things like that. This is all manufacturing. This is all hostility and attribution of bid'ah and kufr, where you don't have a correct argument or you don't have a correct understanding. Because again, they did not look at the Quran and synchronize all the ayahs in this area, because this area is extremely complex. It's very complex. You look from one side, the other side, front, back, up and down, until you get the picture as close to the reality as possible. And there you have only just a general picture. The fine details is almost impossible to conceive or to work with. Okay, carry on.
Nonetheless, it is critical to emphasize that the necessary implications of a statement that are not binding upon its proponent, unless they explicitly affirm and adhere to them. To impose on a person a position they have not committed to is an act of injustice and aggression. a method characteristic of those engaged in contentious argumentation and sophistry, and indeed the approach of the innovators and people of whims. However, a detailed exposition of this subject falls outside the scope of this treatise. Praise belongs to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. It reminds me of Madkhalis in arguments. They do manhaj checking.
Yeah.
It appears to us that the extreme
Except their own manhaj. They don't check their own manhaj. Their manhaj is absolute, is certain. They have reached divine certainty in their own manhaj. Their tazkiyah.
They have the force field around them, which everything else is irrelevant.
We are the children of Allah, His beloved one. We enter paradise without any discussion. All of that. This is implicit or explicit in the statements. And this is catastrophic. That's the catastrophe which killed the Jews and destroyed them.
Inshallah, Madkhalis will go the same way.
Quran says that clearly. قالت اليهود والنصارى نحن أبناء الله وأحباؤه. Same messenger. Why he punish you for your sin? If that's as you claim. We are the children of God and His beloved ones. Why he punish you for your sins? If it is so, it wouldn't be possible like that. So there's some problem there in the statement. Humble yourself. That's not true. We believe in God. We hope that we will be His chosen one, but we are still aware that we are sinful and that we have to repent and so on. Then all problems are gone just by this symbol, be humbling yourself. That's a sign of rebellion, unwilling to submit to Allah, to be obedient. Because of a special class. That's what will break your back and finish you completely. That's one way which destroy you. This is what destroyed Iblis, according to the argument. أنا خير منه. Even if you're خير منه, you have to obey the command. Just get lost, out, cast out of him. That's it. That's what destroyed him. I'm superior to him. Yeah, you may be superior. But my command must be obeyed from superior and inferior. Maybe you're genuinely superior. That's the reason Allah said to him, it's not befitting for you to be arrogant here in heaven. And here everyone is submissive and slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's it. Some of them are superior and inferior, no doubt about it. Some are higher than the others, no doubt about that. But that's not the issue here. That's not the argument. The argument, I gave a command and you have to obey. Period, full stop, end of story, nothing else. That's it. So when Ibn Qayyim, I will come back always to that again. Filled pages about discussing that Adam is actually superior to Iblis. He is committing a major blunder. Most likely with good intention, because of this moment the mind is been absent. He didn't understand the deep reality of what's going on in the universe. This is irrelevant. It may be, I will claim the fire is superior to the mud. I don't care about that. It's irrelevant. I give usually an offensive example. Say, if Allah ordered you to make sujood to a pile of shit, do you have a right to say no? No, you don't have. Period, full stop. And there is no doubt, neither in Allah's side nor in your side, that you are superior to the pile of shit in every respect. But that's not the issue. It's not the issue. That's not the issue with Adam and Iblis, with his first command. At least in our context. It may be in another galaxy, something else is ongoing. We don't know. Maybe similar things happened almost everywhere in other planets. We regard that trillions of planets. It's very conceivable that millions of them are suitable for life like Earth. Very conceivable. And similar stories have happened there. But the system, the fundamental principle is there everywhere. Or in everywhere in this universe and all possible universes which have come, if ever, or may have come, but they are shut out, bad and forgotten. All of that, He is the sovereign and the commander, and the command must be obeyed absolutely and irrevocably. That's it. Nothing else can be said about that. And there's no need to discuss about superiority and inferiority. You may classify creation and do PhDs about that. That's fine, but this has nothing to do with the obligation to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and submit to His command. Because He's absolutely the sovereign. And so absolutely the superior one by infinite margin anyway. So the various ranks of the creation become zero relative to His rank, which is infinitely high. But if you want to give old mathematical models, that's very clear. So it doesn't matter how superior you do to Adam or less and so on. by 100 kilometer, whatever, use a level of ranking the levels by some kind of measure, call it idealization meter and so on. It's finite. But we apply between you and Allah, it's infinite, it's unsurmountable. It's an absolute gap, unsurmountable to anyone. Yeah, carry on.
It appears that to us that the extreme proponents of the Qadiriyah merely denied that divine foreknowledge directly encompasses the specific outcomes of human voluntary actions in each particular case. Rather, they held that Allah's prior knowledge comprehends all possible outcomes that could occur, and that Allah permits any of these possibilities to materialize based on the determination of the will of the creature endowed with choice and the occurrence of the corresponding action. That's pretty similar to what you say, isn't it? That's pretty similar to what you say, isn't it?
I didn't understand. What's the question?
That's pretty similar to what you say.
Yeah, who said that?
This is the Qadiriyah.
Yeah, that's essentially what they say. But they claim they mean that you can defeat Allah. Allah does not.
Oh, I see.
That's just because of argumentative and arrogance and self-justification. That's it.
No, what I'm saying, their actual point of view that
essentially is that. Essentially, that's what we say. Maybe not that precise, not developed like that, but this is that. Like, for example, Hassan al-Basri is known to have this point of view. And in his second Hajj, he made Hajj twice in his life only. One in the 50s after coming from Khorasan, because he was the scribe or the chief, let's say what they call it in America, the head of the presidential office. The head of
chief of staff.
Chief of staff. He was the chief staff of one ruler in Khorasan. And then he came back like 52, 53, 52 maybe. And then 54, 55, he made his first Hajj. And then no more Hajj until the year 100. That's well known. And where Tawus was heading the scholars at the time. He was the senior tabi'i, the student of Ibn Abbas. And then some people wanted to open the issue of Qadr in the Masjid al-Khif in Muzdalifah. And Tawus noticed that and didn't want to have the dispute. So he started a maw'idah until the sun almost rose and everyone dispersed without opening that dispute. In that Hajj, someone asked Hassan al-Basri, because he had a room that is Qadari. Ask him, Sheikh, who created Iblis? And Hassan al-Basri understood what the man means. Say, Subhanallah, is there a creator except Allah? Because some people say he's Qadari. He doesn't believe this. He believes that he must believe that Iblis, some kind of an independent being, creator of evil. It comes all to the Qadar issue. And then it mixed with the divine foreknowledge and so on, and it becomes a big mess. It's already, that time is already messed up. So that's it. But the reality, that's what they really said. Maybe in a primitive way and so on, not precise, sharp, precise as we did, but it did. That's what they said. That's essentially what it is. Not what the other side accuse them and slander them with.
Okay.
Rather, the other side is not willing to do jidal bil ahsan, dispute, and they do dialectic and argument with the best possible way. They do it with a bad way. The bad way is that you think you are superior and you have the absolute truth, and then you insult the other side. That's not a proper dispute, which leads to guidance and to finding the truth by a good dialogue. Because dialogue is an excellent way to find the truth, provided then billati ahsan. What's your argument? Yeah, that sounds logical, but there's an objection like that. Have your response? I have this response. Okay, I have this addition. With this dialogue, you end in the truth quite quickly and smooth. Both sides have good intention.
The other side is strawmanning.
And accepting that I may be mistaken. That's the Quran. Address the Prophet telling the mushrikeen, either we or you are guided or in a clear misguidance. Let's discuss it. See who is the more misguided and guided than the other one. So from the beginning, you say either we, us, or you, or the messenger, know the certitude that he is on the right path. But when discussing with the other one, make it open. Maybe you are wrong, or maybe you are wrong. Let us discuss it on that ground. 50-50, and then we go bit by bit, until you show me and I show you that that's 70% right than you, and you are 30, and then more 80, 90, until we get to certainty. That's it. So it go. Anything else we'll get to here. Anything else, starting to slandering and accusation and so on. because of your arrogance or because of minority complexes will get you astray. It will destroy you. That's it. That's the reality of everything. Even in the small dispute about your tree of the neighbor is protruding on your house, and then you argue who is responsible for that, who should cut. Can I cut the path coming in my house, or I cannot cut that? If you do it in a reasonable way, it solves. If someone is stubborn, no, this is my tree, but it is encroaching on my side. How do we deal with that? Let's cut it. If it's not possible, then we have unfortunately to cut the tree because it's encroaching and harming me, and so on, back and forth. If it's done reasonably with good neighborly relation, it's resolved. If it does not, then ultimately we have a problem here. That some neighbor, I got and put some particular, they solve it and throw it over the fence, killing the other tree. The guy is not cooperating. What can you do? That's the only way. Because he's not cooperating. The matter is very simple. Let me just cut these branches. No, don't touch my branches. They are in my area. And they are thorny. It's a thorny bush. Harming everyone. So I have to. But he's not willing. Willing with batteries. Okay, that part growing in your area, cut these. Even I will cut it to my side. As a good neighbor, I should do it. The moment it grows, after a few months, I cut again. No problem. It doesn't cause that much of a problem. If I maybe having not enough money to hire someone because I'm old, I will, as a neighbor, as a good neighbor, cooperate with you. That's easy. Even in such a trivial thing, if it's not done in a dialectic way, with the best intention, it's never going to work. Neither inside an ideology nor outside from the other ideologies.
This is so they call it straw man when they erect a false premise of the other side and then they lambast the person for that false premise.
Exactly. Attribute to them, yes, straw man argument. Like this atheist claim that we are having a straw man argument.
Unfortunately, a lot of the Muslims have this as well amongst the
everywhere.
I mean, right now, this when I started the thing was the entire back and forth over the people over shirk, this, that, so forth. There's a lot of that's in there as well. And there's always a soundbite that they predispose it as shirk. Again, they're not even entertaining any other point of view, because that mentality is that, you're mubtadi. We're never going to discuss with you. It's just the doors are closed.
But why come this presuppose? Because you think your point of view is absolutely well established because you trust Ibn Abdul Wahhab and Ibn Taymiyyah without verifying them and without humbling yourself. Maybe it is an error. Let me check it. We hear that someone called Al-Maliki or Al-Mas'ali is criticizing that. Let's read that in an objective eyesight. So there may be a point. There may be a point. Just let's say that and read. Some Shia have a good criticism of the Wahhabi on very good ground. And another division of Tawheed. It's not that ours, like slightly different. Let's read it. We read it, benefited from it when I was already in Saudi Arabia. And you criticize subdivision in their case because it's based on the belief of infallible Imam, which is not warranted. There's no absolute certainty in that. So we criticize part of it, but he has like 7 division and things like similar to ours. Divine essence, etc., khaliqiyya, creativity, hakimiyya, and so on. Rububiyyah of tasarruf and rububiyyah in normative, in between creative and normative divine action, things like that. He would make sort of the separation. But because he believes in the infallibility of Imam, he wants to make that part of Tawheed. That's where he make a mistake. And we know where the mistake has come from. We can point that to him. Yeah, for example. Without that, you will never get anywhere. You have to read what the other side is saying and analyze it in good faith. Maybe he has a point. Let me see. And analyze it properly. Not to look to refute it. Look to see it may have a point. Maybe I can benefit from it. If you look this way, you will be always guided. You will always only guided. That Allah said in the Quran to them, they say we are following what our parents say. What if that what I bring is more guided and better than what your parents say? Just check it. Let's be ready to say, oh, we discuss what our parents, what we got from our parents and so on. It has some faults. We have to improve on it. It may be. Maybe I have better things, better than what you have. Let us check that, both sides. That's the way of the Quran. ولا تجد الكتاب إلا بالتي أحسن. Don't go into that and started screaming at their God and insult him. قولوا إلهنا وإلهكم. Our Lord, our divine being is your divine being. You have misunderstanding and method the divine essence and multiple persons in one essence and 1 in 3 and so on, we can discuss that. But essentially, fundamentally, you worship the same. You're not, you can't say, like, for example, Jews attack the Christians, they worship 3 different gods. They are pagans. No, that's not. They worship one God, but the one is 3 and 1 is a, that has to be criticized on its own right, yes, but this is accusation. The same if a Christian will come say the Jews worship, actually they believe in different gods, but they worship their own local god, but there are other gods for other tribes. That's not what the Jews says. They are the special tribe of God, so he's their God in that sense. But the other tribes do not have other gods. They're fabricated gods, not true gods, for example. But some Christians tend to be abusive in that direction as a counter abuse. We should neither fall into both traps. For the Jews, the God from Israel is a special people, is the God of the universe, no doubt. And the gods of other tribes are false gods, no doubt about that. So they are not pagan in that respect. The problem is that they attributed themselves to be somehow chosen people of this one, which is not fits with the divine, real divine understanding. And they don't comprehend his perfection as it should be, like resting with the 7th day, meaning his understanding of a divine power is deficient, and they don't have a deep concept of, although in the interaction in Mount Sinai with Musa, they said, which name should I use you when I talk to them? At that time, there was not a name yet developed yet, a specific name for the divine, not yet. So they tell them, Yahuwah, I am who I am, or he who is he. That's very difficult at that level to flesh out. But it should indicate clearly this is something completely different. He is the one, he is beyond any other description at the moment. So it can't be that he's resting on the Sabbath. But this is written most likely later and put in the commandments, because the commandments, the so-called 10 commands, actually is not only the terms 10 commands people say in Deuteronomy. There's another version in Exodus, I think another version, another place in which the 10th is done and resting on the Sabbath. It's not in the 10 commandments, but they fabricated that later. It's a big mess, but anyway, that's it. So we can say you did not give Allah the sufficient credit because you don't understand divine as it should be, which level he is really in. Okay, that's a shortcoming. People were primitive at that time. Okay, let's overcome that. Let's go step by step toward the right one, instead of starting accusation and slandering. ولا توجد الذين أوتوا الكتاب إلا بالتي أحسن. قل إلهنا وإلهكم واحد ونحن له مسلمون. Listen, we submit to that one divine. You have misunderstanding, there's a correction. Let us come and benefit from that. تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا. People of the book come to a common word with it. That we don't appoint each other, that's another issue. That we don't appoint each other as lords beside Allah. Neither we are lords beside Allah, nor you are. We are all slaves to Allah. So all these monks and scribes and those who make halal and haram, out. These kings who think they have the right, out. We agree on that, then we are fine. If you don't agree, we're sorry. If they turn away, then we are submissive to only this one. And we're not declaring ourselves neither before nor after to be lords and people in power to do legislation outside Allah's permission. No, that's not possible. That's the way it goes. But these people do not read the book of Allah. And if they read it, they sing it. It's just a song. It's not digested. يقرؤون القرآن لا يجاوز تراقيهم. That's the problem. The Quran doesn't go down into their chest. It doesn't become useful knowledge. It is just maybe nice. It can be nice sung in the masjid, leading salah. But any real extraction, any deep knowledge from that, any deep understanding of the universe, placing yourself in the right place in the universe, no. Unfortunately. No. Unfortunately. Carry on.
Well, there it is.
We stop there. You said we stop here?
No. We just need to. We just got about a couple of pages left, inshallah.
Okay.
About 3 pages left. For them, it is inconceivable that any of this could transpire without Allah's permission, for He is eternally and perpetually capable of preventing it. None can overpower Him, nor can anyone escape His authority. Hence, in their view, there is no shirk in the realms of management and governance, and thus no justification for branding them with the label the Magians of this Ummah. However, the issue of divine knowledge, specifically the problem of al-qada, the divine decree, remains unsolved. This is distinct from the matter of al-qadar, divine predestination, despite the confusion of many who conflate the two and erroneously claim that belief in them is a singular concept. This is a complex, critical, and profoundly significant matter, but its full exploration lies beyond the scope of this discussion. What has been outlined above is a list of the clearest and most well-known examples that have come to our attention. Others may identify additional examples or further instances related to these cases. The forms and layers of shirk are numerous, overlapping and interwoven, akin to the layers of darkness in the depths of a vast ocean, with waves above it and clouds above those waves, darkness upon darkness. By contrast, the guidance and light of truth are singular, clear, and radiant, and they are embodied in what was brought by
And you see that's hinted in the Quran. Say, يخرجهم, the messenger bring them out of the darknesses in plural to the light, one light.
إلى النور.
الظلمات إلى النور, not إلى الأنوار, إلى النور. Because it's only one nur, one truth. Falsehood, various falsehood of various facets, sometimes compounded, sometimes separated. It's just a nightmare, like an ocean and a storm. The darkness above there, and the above, and darkness below the sea, and waves above waves is horrifying darkness there, confusing dark. But the moment the sun comes out, there's only one sun there. Everything is clear. You know where you are. You know you are in the ship. You know that below you are sea. It may be waving there, but you know the waves. You can estimate: can I survive them? Can I go quickly to a port? Can I continue my work? Can I continue fishing? You see clear because there's one sun clearly radiating everywhere. A very good metaphor. But we try to summarize as much as possible in main categories. That's the job here.
And they embodied what was brought by Muhammad Sallallahu, the seal of the prophets. Upon him, peace be on him, upon him and his family, salutations and blessing from Allah, the sovereign truth, and from Allah, and blessing from Allah, the sovereign truth and the manifest light. All praise belongs to Allah, Lord of all creation. Indeed, in this matter, Ibn Taymiyyah was correct. It included tadbir, management, and tasarruf, governance, under the broader category of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, as the concept of management and governance are natural extensions of siyada, sovereignty, and tamalluk, ownership. These are by necessity interconnected aspects of the same reality as we.
So he is right. That's part of Rububiyyah. Yes, that's correct, but not tariq here.
As we have previously elaborated in discussing the concept of lordship. However, it must also be known with absolute certainty, free from any doubt, that what truly matters is the reality of belief and the essence of conceptualization, irrespective of terminology or phrasing. Thus, whoever claims any of the following has thereby ascribed a rival to Allah. So the list, number one, that anyone besides Allah possesses in the presence of Allah an intercession that is never rejected or that does not require explicit permission under any circumstances. So basically autonomy in
intercession without permission.
Number two, that someone other than Allah governs the universe independently without Allah's permission, will, or decree. Number three, that anyone other than Allah possesses a power or authority that rivals Allah, even in a single aspect, even a single instance or aspect, such as A, claiming that anyone besides Allah can impose upon Allah, B, asserting that anyone besides Allah can escape the grasp of Allah, in brackets, that it is in exclamation marks, that someone exists beyond Allah's divine control, capable of fleeing or evading Allah, rendering him incapable of apprehending them. Such beliefs are held by some ignorant common folk, such as certain African communities and others regarding jinn, lower spirits, or demonic entities.
Well, they indulge in so-called black magic to appease these things and use them and so on.
Number four, that Allah does not directly manage or govern creation, but instead requires, due to some deficiency in his power, an intermediary to govern creation on his behalf, or that creation itself, due to some perceived indifference or deficiency in Allah's care, or owing to his transcendence and remoteness, necessitates intermediaries to manage their affairs and present their petitions to him from below to above. This is akin to the beliefs of star worshippers, those who venerate the 7 or 10 intellects in similar groups. Number 5, that someone other than Allah governs creation or manages its
And
affairs
this
because
connected in many cases, maybe I should that in the editing, either deficiency in his power or deficiency in his knowledge. He may not know except himself. He's just busy admiring himself. He's a narcissist, super narcissist, egomaniac, just looking on himself in some divine mirror and involved, happy with his beauty. And then other creation are emanated, and these are the manage the lower world, the messy, filthy earth, and so on. He is above that. He's just busy enjoying himself. That's somehow hidden in their statement. So deficiency in power, deficiency in knowledge. And this may be response to Quran response فاعلم أن الله على كل شيء قدير وأنه قد أحاط بكل شيء. Know that Allah is omnipotent over everything, and that Allah comprehensively knows everything. So that's none of this can happen in this way, despite of that he recognizes his own beauty and admire himself, but doesn't negate that he's still comprehensive and he attend to this called filthy lower way. There is no filthy lower way. That's the imagination of these people, that because the earth is full of things which they don't like, they call it the filthy part of creation. But the stars are pure and far away. Poor guys. They should be thrown out in the galaxy to see how hostile the environment there is, and they will die immediately. The Earth is much better accommodating and nicer than the outer space, for humans at least. So this is all based on primitive and defunct cosmology anyway, understanding of the world anyway. Okay, carry on.
Okay, that's number 5, that someone other than Allah governs or manages its affairs because Allah, whilst possessing perfect knowledge and power, only knows universal realities, but is unaware of the specific states of individual creatures. Therefore, the celestial intellects, souls, angels, or secondary deities must necessarily and inevitably undertake the governance of the universe.
And that's the deficiency in knowledge. The divine knowledge is only universal, because otherwise, if you know the particulars, he would be changing in time. That's the same problem of changing in time. So he knows only these abstract generalities, like the ideal, the world of ideals of Plato is actually anchored in such a divine being, removed and far away, just ideals. That's it. Other things with other beings which are created and if at a time secular in the sense that they are connected to time, these are manage the messy particulars affairs. He is just knows these abstracts and generalities, and they emanate somehow to the lower ones who then do the execution because of that. This is all based on some defunct cosmology and misunderstanding of divine attributes and meaning of necessarily existing. Yeah.
Number 6, or that someone other than Allah manages creation or parts of it, because Allah, despite his perfect knowledge and power, has removed it from his dominion and transferred true ownership to another being. This transfer is considered an absolute and final delegation, irrevocable and binding, whereby the other entity manages creation by its own discretion, issues judgments according to its own authority, and implements decrees based on its own commands. In this view, the entity is not merely a cause, intermediary, or instrument, but a true partner, sharik, in sovereignty and ownership, sharing in these capacities with Allah in a genuine sense.
That's obviously making the divine power and divine knowledge contradictory, because the divine power does not extend to the impossible. It's impossible to make a created being having such a kingdom and ownership like a non-created being. It's not possible. There's no way to transfer that. You give him ownership, but with your permission, within your limitations. It cannot be unlimited. That is non-creatable. Such an entity is not creatable. And such an act of transfer is impossible. Although it looks attractive, he has the power to do it. It's not a matter of power. This means the power is contradictory. This indicates, in that case, for example, that he can deprive himself from the power. But if he deprives himself of power, how can he become power? And he can then die. It's the same contradiction. That is على كل شيء قدير, capable of doing everything contingent, not anything which is impossible or thing contradicting necessarily existing nature. That power does not relate to that. It's ill-defined.
Okay, so this is the final paragraph or the final part before we call it a day. Whoever claims any of these beliefs has thereby ascribed a rival to Allah, attributing to another being some of the qualities exclusive to divinity. This equates to elevating that being to the status of a god or deity alongside Allah, regardless of what it is called. Whether one names it a god, an intercessor, a mediator, a king, a celestial intellect, a stellar spirit, a planetary soul, a saint, a pole, a helper, or any other title, the true criterion is the consistent and essence of the belief itself.
So the
Nothing
names are
more,
not
nothing
relevant.
less.
Don't get stuck with the names. Like some Sufis say, attribute things similar to this one, the last one, that transfer of power to the called al-Ghawth al-Akbar. Or the original word was actually that's the leader Sufi in the world. That's Abdul Qadir Jilani, because he organized the Sufi in such a way that they can lead masses and establish what they call futuwa, young people trained for fighting so that they can fight the crusaders. That's the reason he established that. And then he said there will be a Ghawth al-Akbar, that's himself, allegedly. I didn't study that thoroughly. And then there will be 4 people responsible for direction of the earth, one for the north, one for the east. So they fear 4 deputies called the Qutb, the pole, north pole, east pole, and so on. It's just like ranking. And he never claimed that the management of the universe transferred him. Actually, what he's managing is these youth movements, which are trained for to liberate Palestine from the Crusades in due course. That's what Abdul Qadir Jilani. And then the follower, very exaggerated, he's al-Ghawth al-Akbar, al-Ghawth Qutb, the super pole, the Ghawth. Ghawth مستغاث, يعني asking for the helper. And this becomes an imaginary. In some of his followers, it is making him ranking in divinity. Like I hear someone telling me that some Pakistani woman told her, they were sitting in wedding or something, that, oh, Abdul Qadir, yeah, Allah is afraid of Al Qadir. He has to accept what he's ordered. So he can make shafa and do things, forcing Allah to accept. Then he is obviously a partner of Allah. That is absolutely clearly shirk. No. And still he's Abdul Qadir, he's the wali, he's a peer, etc. No, it doesn't matter. They become divine in this way. And this, what the woman said, is clear shirk. Hopefully she doesn't believe that is just by excused by ignorance. I don't know. But anyway, that's a shirk. Not by someone going circumambulating the grave and kissing it like Ibn Abdul Wahhab, the simple-minded rogue. Meow. Meow. Okay, carry on.
Nothing less, not the terminology used. Indeed, whoever attributes any of these qualities to someone or something other than Allah has made the entity a deity beside Allah. By doing so, they are a mushrik and a kafir who has apostatized from Islam and exited its fold, assuming they had previously entered it with a sound covenant. This remains true regardless of the names or terms employed. Moreover, it is irrelevant what actions the individual performs as a result of such beliefs, whether they express veneration, love, devotion, and obedience, or enmity, hatred, distance, and obedience, or even indifference and apathy.
Well, independent of they do with rituals or do not with rituals, that's all irrelevant. They may never do any ritual. Or they do sometimes, more often than not, there will be some ritual because human needs some symbolism and things like that. But rituals are irrelevant. It's absolutely secondary, which became central in Abdul Wahhab's fallacy. So the peripheral became central and the central became void, does not exist. They don't check it at all. They don't refer to it.
The ultimate standard is always the essence and reality of the belief itself, not the names, words, or needs arising from it. As previously mentioned, and as will be thoroughly addressed and elaborated upon in the remainder of this treatise, thorough analysis, discussion, foundational principles, and derived rulings, the essence of belief remains the decisive factor. Okay, so that concludes this chapter. The next chapter is Tawheed Hakimiyya, page 280, chapter 7. So just as a side note, the Tawheed Hakimiyya is just literally one page, and you have an entire book, which was translated a little while back, though it's an older edition. I'll leave it to your judgment, Sheikh, whether you think we should do the chapter or should we do the entire book, Tawheed Hakimiyya, or we do it after we finish this book, Hakimiyya?
I suggest... because I want to go to the book and do a bit of polishing and editing still.
Okay.
We do maybe that anyway, but not today. Today, what's the time
No, no,
now?
not today, not today, not today. I'm just talking
Yeah,
about for future reference because we've got the entire book of Hakim here. Maybe because
because
it's quite old, it probably needs a
you know
polish.
it had been translated and things
Oh,
like
it's been
that.
translated. I mean, I did. I think was it who did it? I think I might have done a proofreading. I can't remember.
We can do it. Why not? We can do it here.
Well, I'll ask the brothers inshallah whether they want to, because whether to just whip through the whole of, because we're nearly finishing volume 3,
Hmm.
and then after that is the final one, which is volume 4,
Hmm.
which starts with, there's a final book that's been translated, which starts with Tawheed, legislation and ruling. So it is probably associated with
Hakimi
it.
is related to that.
Yeah, I mean,
The
we
way
can
they
all.
subdivided things and changed the arrangement
Yeah.
is making me a bit confused. But
No problem. We'll just plow through it, inshallah. Also, one suggestion:
Mhm.
when we do finish the whole Tawheed series, maybe we could do some of the standalone work. So, for example, if we get accounting the rulers, we could do that,
Mhm.
or fighting, resisting. The Imatul Quraysh. We can probably do that
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
that's enough. That's relatively recent, and it would be good just to final nail in the coffin for some of these
Okay. Mhm.
Madakhila.
Mhm.
I
Okay.
mean, and it's also because the translations there, and I just want to close it out because going back and forth with the world's slowest translator, it
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
took forever. So it's a good way of closing it out.
Okay.
Sure.
Mhm.
Okay, so just for the people who are listening on YouTube, I don't tend to check a lot of the comments because the intention of this lesson is just literally just to plow through the text.
Mhm.
The link for the video for the Zoom is in the description. So you're more than welcome to join and interrogate when we finish our halaqah. It's not always convenient to entertain over the YouTube channel because there's a time delay and we can't get a proper dialogue.
Yeah. Mhm.
So if anyone wants to have any questions on what's been said, feel free to raise hands, unmute as necessary. Okay. Anyone wanna? Okay, no problem. Okay,
Me,
far away, bruv. Always welcome.
I was gonna say, when we were talking about the Qadariya maybe like 10 minutes ago, don't you think that many of the claims about them is exaggerated by the enemies?
Yeah,
As
we just commented. We made
oh, you
John
commented
Reed.
that. I
Yeah.
missed
Yeah.
that part. I see.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it, definitely. Most of these, that's
Yeah,
just the Majus and all these things. It's just transgression and buggy and aggressiveness.
even
Departing
the
that.
hadith, Ibn Umar, I think, mentions it that the Murji'a and the Qadariya are condemned by Rasulullah.
Most
This looks
most
like a
most like most
fabrication.
likely this part is fabricated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
These names
yeah. I
are
think so.
later. But even the
Exactly.
hadith of Qadar ibn Umar is faulty. The people asking the wrong guy, and his answer shows that he doesn't understand, and he doesn't understand the meaning. The affairs are invented. أنف إن الأمر أنف. They say ويقولون لا قدر. He commented on لا قدر. Word لا قدر. Say no, قدر must be iman according to the hadith of Prophet. That's all that he said. He did not comment on أنف. It's not clear if he understand that qadar and unuf are two different issues. It's simply the people ask the wrong guy. Ibn Umar is
Yeah,
not the man to be asked about such deep question. He's not even able to analyze politically correct and do the correct ruling. He's good
yeah.
in beards, cutting beards, issues what they call hadi al open and fiqh, uh,
The ritualistic aspects of religion.
ritualistic and the open, the clear things of ritualistic sexuality, things like that. You can't because he knows these in detail. The other things he fails. Like, for
I-
example,
in-
he failed to recognize
interestingly,
that the bay'ah of Yazid is invalid. There's no bay'ah.
yeah, and was he not also saying whoever revokes their bay'ah from Yazid will be cursed by Allah? Did he not also say something
No,
like
no,
this?
not in that way, but he believed it's valid. He was discussing with the people in Medina before the catastrophe of Harra that what you're doing is wrong because there's a bay'ah. There's no bay'ah. The bay'ah
Yes,
is invalid.
exactly,
He's
exactly,
not
exactly.
capable of such deep things. The moment you go to
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
level of depth, also when Ali was having the bay'ah and everything, he went to Mecca, ran away to Mecca. Sir Ali is still in Medina, ran away to Mecca doing Umrah. He doesn't want to be involved. He's incapable to have a clear point of view. And Ali want to pursue him, and then but Kulthum, his stepmother, because Kulthum is younger than him, uh,
Yes.
mounted a horse, went to Ali. That's in the Saqifa, telling Ali, no, no,
Mm.
no. I think it's the Saqifa, telling Ali, no, no, no. I permitted him to go. Let him go. He's unable to digest the situation. Let him. And Ali said, yes, you see, okay. And then he ignored him, and he never joined Ali in Siffin in any way. He's just a failure in these things. So you don't accept him in these things. He's a failure to be something issue much deeper and complex like Qadar.
He's definitely not the man for that. Yeah.
And the people asking him are also stupid and simple-minded. Anyway, they should find someone, but maybe there was nobody left from the Sahaba at the time when they were asked. That's a possibility. That's it. They think they started with a fiction that a Sahabi, meaning that he's a genius in every aspect of Islam. That's not true. That's simply not true. But it's this a later generation, not the first generation, which were even interrogating Umar and criticizing him and discussing with him publicly. That generation was gone.
That generation was gone. Yeah. Exactly.
So this is all is like that. That's, for example, this one. After that, then everything was mingled up. And Bani Umayyah worked their wonder to make their argument was that if our rule is not legitimate, Allah would not have allowed it. Anyway, it is known from the beginning of the world. And it's going to happen whatever you do. So just shut up and submit. That's what they said. That's what they
they were promoting Jabariya and
they introduced Jabr. That's introduced Jabr. That's the reason rebellion against them is usually being Qadariya. And this is all accusation and counter accusation.
The new one is brother, because you don't do proper ruku, that's why we're in this problem. If everyone has perfect, if you get a set square and your back is perfectly straight, by magic, all these problems will go away.
Either the spastics or nefarious. Neither of them are in favor of us. So, yeah.
And so then Islamic understanding and knowledge degenerated bit by bit. Ruling was out. Deeper issues were out only in certain circles which are accusing each other. And the common Muslim had just a basic thing. That's it. And they still were the best, really. Their scholars, the majority of their scholars and their ruler are bad. And the same Mubarak said that clearly. هل بدل أو أفسد الدين إلى الملوك وأحبار رسوله. Nothing corrupted the religion or changed the religion except the kings and the evil scholars and monks. These are not the common people. You are the best.
Not the common people, yeah.
Not the common people, yeah.
It's a scholarly class, it's playing God.
Yeah, the leadership class, the elites, which are the rulers and the scholars and so on. That's it. The same in the West, same in every society.
Every society.
Yeah, they are the one who the corruption start there, not from the bottom. The common people are usually at fitra, good, normal, but they're corrupted by the upper ones in various ways of corruption, depending upon which kind of society and the religion you are talking about. That's it. So we are in the time of corruption started by Muawiyah and the Qadar, the muddy situation, according to the hadith, which is Ibn Qayyim even weaved in his Nuniyah, that the best of the Ummah, the beginning at the end, and in between it is a muddy. That's so well established that he regarded that in his Nuniyah. The poetry ending with a noon, the studies called Nuniyat Ibn Qayyim, and he mentioned various issues of Aqidah and so on. Not everything there is good and perfect, yeah, definitely, but so that's it. We are now trying to end the muddy time, and the only way to end the muddy is remove the mud. The mud is a matter of understanding and looking into the reality, and that will be the real change, which ends the mud.
I think a very general and important reminder for people to remember whilst fighting this cause is that this war or this battle between Haqq and Batil is never going to end in the first place. That's the point of the test. Forever until Yawm al-Qiyamah, Haqq and Batil are going to fight until we go back to Allah. Yani. That's the aim, that's the objective. It's not always victory. It's not always
no, it will be up and down. But there will be a very long stretch of muddy time.
Exactly.
The coming closer until Yawm Qiyamah is much better.
Some people expect that if we have one victory, that victory is going to last until Yawm Qiyamah. Like this is this is delusional, you know? Yeah. This is very delusional.
Yeah.
That people need to remember this. The test is
it started in time of the Prophet when someone came to him after the conquest of Mecca. Some people have starting being there, selling their horses and so on. Say, "Khalas, the conquest has happened. There will be no war." They say, "Are you sure they're serious?" Now the real war is coming. There will be wars after war until you fight Ad-Dajjal and fight Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Then after that, there may be no wars.
Yeah.
The real wars are still coming. That's skirmishes. That's not real war. So that's just, people tend to like say, "Allah, hunky dory, everything is right." No, it's not going to happen like that. Yeah. Anyway, let's continue with that. But I think what breaking the back of the Wahhabi and Ibn Taymiyyah and so on, what breaks everyone's back is assuming that what you have achieved is absolute and is not matter of discussion, ignoring what Allah even telling His Messenger. Tell them either we or you are misguided or guided. Let's discuss. Put your argument on the table, I bring my argument, and then we go back and forth until we clarify the matter. But they come with no, what we have is an absolute, unattackable. Then there's no way there will be any reasonable dialogue.
Brain turns off. After that, the brain turns off.
Exactly.